it's a stereotype that women get interrupted more than men.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I think your kid needs your attention.
She wants a computer. Women are questioned a lot more when they're in the leadership roles compared to when they're in the supportive roles.
We have today Tatyana Arbouzova, amazing QA manager, QA director level, and Tatyana, she has a very super interesting story, career journey. Tatyana, welcome to our morning podcast show. Thank you for joining us and welcome. Tatyana, tell us about your career journey. How did you start it? First of all, how did you get to your first very job?
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here and share my story with you guys. My story started back in Russia. I grew up in Russia and I graduated from university there. And I started working as a software developer. And I had an opportunity to interview with Microsoft. The way it started is I met a guy who interviewed with Microsoft and he got accepted and decided to move overseas. I had a choice. Either I have to find a job myself, or what a lot of women did at that time was getting married to the software engineers who moved to Seattle to work for Microsoft and come on a fiance visa. So I had these two options in front of me. And so I decided to give it a shot and interview myself. And I interviewed with Microsoft soon after I graduated. I graduated in June. I interviewed in September, and I got an offer. And that was super exciting. I never thought that I would be interviewing with Microsoft, but that kind of taught me a lesson that you should try things that you don't think are possible. And then you never know, you might just get it. And so I moved here 6 months later after getting an offer. It takes 6 months to get a visa, and started as a SDET at Microsoft. At that time, they didn't give us many options. It's just an offer and you just like too excited about it to understand if it's a developer or not developer. Yeah. And then this is how my SDET journey started.
That's awesome. And I forgot to tell you guys that with Tatyana, we met through the meetup networking. And we already hosted together the meetup at Disney back then, right? I don't remember. It was 2019.
It was 2019. Yep. August, right? Probably. Yep.
Yeah. And that's so awesome to get reconnected. And I see that your activity on LinkedIn right now, you're also trying to help with career advices, and I see that you are trying to help people like with getting through interview. That's very awesome. So my question would be like, I know you had some, I would say not very generic route, right? I would say very unique, right? Because you graduated from university in Russia and you got through the rounds. But anyway, if you would start over again and you would be here in the United States and you want to go to software test engineering or software QA or software engineering and start from scratch, what would be your advice to these folks? Like, how would you approach to that?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that technology is a field that is so accessible to everyone right now. And a lot of times you don't even need an education. You don't need a computer science degree to get into it. So don't be shy if you don't have a formal degree to get into technology. I know plenty of people who were very successful in their technology career without having a formal education. So that's number one. Number two, there are a couple of ways. So you could start with a boot camp and get some kind of 3 to 6 month kind of education just to understand and get to know people in the industry and to understand what the job is about. You will have to present some sort of resume to your potential employers. So you could have a boot camp on your resume. Doing something outside of the boot camp that you could put on the resume is very helpful, right? So find a project that you can volunteer for, or just come up with your own project and find a website that you're passionate about and say, hey, I tested this website. Here's the number of bugs I filed. I sent them the bugs. Here's how many got fixed. So basically, get some experience outside of the bootcamp and put that on your resume, right? So you want to just get in first and then figure out how to move within the company from there. Now, how do you get in with a fresh resume, which has little experience? My advice is the same for people like that as for the experienced people like me or anything in the middle. The best way to get in is to network and know someone who can recommend you or who can refer you to the company, especially in the times like right now, when you see that there are 300, 400, 1,000 applications for the same position. Recruiters don't have time or energy to go through all of these resumes. You're just going to be in the pile of the resumes. So it's always networking and knowing someone. And this is where LinkedIn comes in, like we mentioned before. Recruiters are all on LinkedIn. They find their candidates on LinkedIn. This is the power of LinkedIn that it has right now. So being noticeable and being visible on LinkedIn, where recruiters could find you, where they could see your connections. Let's say you're applying for a company and the recruiter from that company finds you and he sees that 5 people from that company. So that tells them that you're connected and that you already know someone in that company. So they're more likely to reach out to you than if you don't know anyone or if you don't have a network. So being visible on LinkedIn, staying connected, building connections, networking, and finding people who could refer or recommend you, I think that's the best way right now to get your way in.
100% agree. 100% agree. And also, Tatiana, let's go back to your career journey. So I want to know, what was your transition from IC role, individual contributor, to the managerial role? Can you a little bit dive us into this route?
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to be a manager, and I was working towards that. In my 11 years at Microsoft, I was always working towards that. At Microsoft, it was challenging because it was a big teams. But let me go back and tell you about one mistake that I made, because we all make mistakes, and if we learn, like, that's how we get better. So a couple years into my career at Microsoft, when I started, my manager came to me and he said, "Tatyana, do you want to be a manager? I have an opportunity to be a manager." So I was fresh out of college. I didn't know how career works. I still believe that being shy and modest is going to get you ahead, because people would just give you roles and promotions because you're doing a good job. And so my answer to him was, "Look, I want to be a manager, but I don't know if I'm quite ready. Do you think I'm ready? I'm only 2 years into my career." And so that was that. So guess what happened? He asked everyone on the team that question. And 2 people said, "Yes, we want to be a manager right now." And they were appointed a manager just because they said they wanted to be a manager. So I started reporting to one of them. So one of them actually ended up leaving the manager position later on because he wasn't feeling good about it, or he wasn't good at it. But I basically missed my opportunity because I was too self-critical, and I didn't believe that I could do it. But if I took that manager opportunity at that time, it would be 18 years of me being a manager right now and not 8. So this is one of the lessons like I learned early on. But let me go back to how
Can we talk about that a little bit? I think that's
Sure.
a really, really interesting point and topic that you bring up. And I see it all too often, which is, I think a lot of it, just when I think about the gender inequality in tech specifically, what you described is the issue. There's these gender expectations, being a good team player, shy, and people will, the sort of subconscious bias there is that, hey, so if somebody doesn't come out and say it, then they're not looking for it. And more often than not, it's women in tech who end up being hurt by that. And I'm super interested in hearing, what have you seen in your career when it was reversed, and you had the opportunity to coach women in tech, maybe reporting to you or mentoring them, what is the advice that you're giving them? I want to say, for my part, I want to be a good ally, and I'll share a story with you as well that I have, but I'm super interested in hearing what advice are you giving to not only women in tech so they don't get impacted by this like you've had to, but also what advice would you give to men leaders on how they should be approaching this inequality?
Yeah, look, this is a very big topic and very interesting for me. So I'll start with, what do I advise women, right? So we've all heard that when people look at the job description, guys apply even if they only meet 60% of the requirements, and the women apply only if they meet 100% of the requirements, right? Women, a lot of times, they have this perfectionist, like, hey, I have to be perfect at it to try it or to apply for it. And men are not like that. And so that creates this gap, right? Like where women are not even trying for some of these opportunities that guys are. My advice for women always, don't try to know everything and be perfect at everything to try it. And I'll give you one specific example. I had 2 employees. And so I would come to a team meeting and I would say, hey guys, I have this opportunity to work on this side project. And this is the visibility you're going to get. Here's an opportunities you're going to get if you work on it. Who wants to work on it? And so the guy would raise his hand and say, I want to work on it, even though he didn't have experience in that, and even though he didn't know how to do it and he's never done it. Now the girl would not raise her hand. And so I went back to her and I said, like, look, you don't have to know how to do everything to sign up for it and to take the opportunity. He didn't know, but he signed up and he made it happen. I know you can make it happen. I have confidence in you. But why didn't you raise your hand? And so she took that advice and she started doing it. And I was like, perfect. Like, she took this opportunity, she delivered, and that got her ahead. So my advice is, don't underestimate yourself, believe in yourself, and take those opportunities that are scary sometimes. But you can do it. You need to build the confidence that you can deliver and you can do it. That's what I've learned in my career. And this is what helped me propel further, because I asked for the opportunities that I didn't know how to do, but I knew I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know if I think on this topic, like I'm going to say a few years back, my eyes really opened up when I read Lean In by Cheryl Sandberg, I believe. And just to really, I think she really helped me map out and see what I knew was happening, but I didn't maybe have the right words to express it. So I love how that opened my eyes, and I've just been like, ever since, just want to be more and more knowledgeable about what I can do. So any advice for managers, specifically men, how can they be good allies? How can they or maybe together, how can we make it a more equitable?
Interestingly, that I'm posting we have video blog right now with my partner from Disney. We work together in Disney, and we led the Women in Tech chapter in Disney with her. And so we're doing this video blog right now. And our next topic is male allyship. And so we literally just recorded it this week. And so it's going to come out most probably next week. So please subscribe to my LinkedIn so you don't miss it. And so what we talk about there is, what is the problem? And the problem is not that men don't support women. The problem is that we all have biases, and they're unconscious biases. And we need to understand them, and we need to understand how to overcome them. And majority of the people in organizations have to do it if we were to change the culture to make it good for both men and women and minorities and everyone, right? So what I would ask male allies, or someone who wants to be a male ally, which we need a lot of them because men are in the front seat, take majority of the leadership positions. And if they don't help us, this is not going to change, is learn about the biases, learn to recognize the biases in yourself and others, and then bring visibility to those biases and start doing something about them. So I'll give you one example of these biases. Interruption is a very popular example, right? It's a stereotype that women get interrupted more than men. right? It's not always true. Like I myself learned to interrupt people because I was in the culture where everyone is interrupting each other. So I'm like, why can't I? Right? So it's not always the problem, but sometimes it is the problem that women don't even get to say what they think because they get interrupted. So in that situation, someone who's a male ally could say, hey, I thought you didn't finish your thought. So do you want to finish your thought before we move on if she got interrupted, right? So doing something like that when you see things happening is what male allies are.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for that podcast. I recommend everybody else does as well. One thing that is very interesting about what you just said is just taking those small steps sometimes can make a big difference. And I read somewhere there was a study around effectiveness of meeting, and a meeting is only as effective as the distribution of speaking time, and making space for everybody to speak up, bringing them into the conversation. Fantastic advice. Love it. Kenny, you had a thought?
Oh, totally agree. It's a lot of insights for me right now. Now I'm afraid to interrupt.
Look, I'll tell you, for me, interruptions themselves is not actually the problem, but the problem is make sure that everyone gets heard. Yeah. It's okay if they all interrupt each other, but make sure that everyone shared their opinion so you can make the decision based on everyone's thoughts rather than just a few individuals who interrupted everyone. That's all.
Yep, make total sense. And
Tatiana, one really perhaps controversial, maybe not, something I have observed, but I haven't really dived into it. I have observed a lot of teams I have been on, perhaps as far as, there's so many different angles to diversity, but as far as men to women ratio, I see that ratio a lot better in the QA space compared to some of the other spaces, like maybe DevOps or even backend development. And it's a broad generalization, and I don't have the data to back it up. But is there something that makes QA an attractive place? Is there something the QA industry is doing well, or is that just it's all in my head?
No, it's not all on your head. I think it's true, but I'll tell you a controversial kind of opinion of mine, right? Women do much better if they're in a supportive roles. So because that's how the women are perceived. The women support us. Their moms who support us, their grandmas who support us, their wives who support us. So this is why as long as the woman is in a supportive role, she is fine. But the minute the woman comes out of the supportive role and says like, hey, look, I'm going to actually create the strategy here and tell you all of you guys what we're going to do, then the question mark comes in. And they're like, why should we trust you? You're a woman. Do you have qualifications? Have you actually done this before? Are you sure you can do this? So women are questioned a lot more when they're in the leadership roles compared to when they're in the supportive roles. So because QA is a supportive role, then it's safe for men to have women there. I know it might be generalization and a little bit controversial, but that's what I've seen from the experience. So for me, my first part of my career, when I was in IC, I was very successful. I had no barriers. There was no glass ceiling. Yeah, sure, go ahead, grow. But when you get into leadership role, then it's all like cautious. I don't know if she's good enough. Is she gonna do something not good? So you get questioned a lot more when you get into leadership.
Interesting. So Tatiana, tell us a story. How did you get into management then?
Yeah, my kind of perspective is that what you need to get ahead is hard work, luck, but also your motivation, right? So I was at Paradigm at that time, And so it was a smaller company, which meant it was easier to get into more leadership of roles compared to the big corporations. I got to work with a team of manual testers, and there were deployment engineers, deployment automation engineers. I was a lead for them, but I ended up basically managing, okay, what are we doing, improvements, how are we going to get better? And so after doing it for a year or so, no one kind of came and say, look, you're doing great. Why don't we give you a manager position? It didn't happen that way. So I had to go and say, hey, look, I'm doing a manager job. How come I don't have a manager title? I'm a lead. I'm leading these people. I'm managing the strategy. I'm meeting with them. Give me a manager title. And that's how I got it, right? So that's how I got a manager title, because I was doing the work. I proved that I can do the work. And then I asked for it. So that's a lot of times how women get the next level jobs. Now, for guys, it's a little bit different. For guys, they could come in and say, hey, like there are those 10 people, why don't I lead them? Can you give me that manager job that leads them? And they would be like, yes, you've never done it before, but that's okay. And we believe you can do it. Go for it. So that's the difference for a man and woman in the workplace. What I've seen from my experience, and this is what studies say as well, is that the women are judged based on the results and the men are judged based on the potential. So for women, you have to prove over and over again that you can do this job. Look, I've showed you the results. I can do it. For men, they're like, okay, just go for it. It doesn't hurt to try if you fail. So.
This is very interesting consideration. Yeah, totally support that. This perspective should change. But yeah, tell us, Tatyana, then you got into the managerial position. You stick there for a while, and then you moved to the Disney. How was that transition like? Why did you decide to move to Disney?
Yeah, so Paradigm, I worked there for 5 years, and probably around 2 or 3 years, after 2 years, I transitioned into this manager role at Paradigm. But the company wasn't doing very well. And so the company actually fell apart. So they started doing layoffs, and it's an interesting story that I was about to go on a maternity leave. That week, they were doing a layoff. And so everyone got invited to one of the 2 rooms, one who stays, one who's laid off, and I wasn't invited anywhere. So I show up at work and they're like, hey, which room you were in? And I was like, I wasn't invited anywhere. So am I staying or am I going? What's up? So I went and talked to HR, and they're like, oh no, you're staying, you're fine, you're gonna be here. And so when I was coming back from the maternity leave, they said, okay, now we're gonna lay you off. So they basically just let me stay there for my maternity leave, and they were planning to lay me off initially. But I consider that a luck for my career, because I had twins, and twins are not easy. So going back to work at 5 months, like I can't imagine how that would be. So that gave me a good severance package, and I stayed home for 5 more months and enjoyed like more time with my kids. And so that's when I found a job at Disney. And so I started that 5 months basically after I got laid off.
Oh, wow. So in Disney, you stick there like for about 4 years, right? Like a little bit less than 4 years in total.
No, it was around 2 years actually.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I might see the wrong data for me, but okay. You've been there like, and then you moved to VMware, like a total different company culture.
Yes.
Like, how did you get there? What motivates you?
Like that's also a funny story, and sometimes like life takes you to places you don't plan to go, or you don't even think about. It happened because I decided to do a practice interview. I met my future boss, VMware boss, in a Women Impact Tech conference. And so I wasn't looking for a job. I was at Disney at that time, and he wasn't looking for a QA manager at that time. I apologize. There's a kid here trying to shake my chair. I wasn't looking for a job, but we connected on LinkedIn.
Say hi to him.
I know.
I
Come
have two
here,
kids.
show your face, show your face. So, oh, there you go.
Hello.
So I met my future boss and a Woman Impact Tech conference, and we connected on LinkedIn, but he didn't look for a QA manager. I wasn't looking for a job. And so 2 months later, he sends me an email and says, hey, I have a QA manager position open. Why don't you come interview? And I was like, VMware, I don't know, Kubernetes, what is this? I know nothing about it, but let me go practice. Like, I love practice interviews. That's a good recommendation I give to everyone. Go to a practice interview at least once a year. Because if you stay in a job for 4 years and then you forgot how to interview, it's going to be hard. So keeping your interview skills up to date helps you get the next job better. So I was like, I'm going to go practice. And the practice went well. And they said, we want to make you an offer. And I said, okay. But another power that you have when you don't really need a job is that you can negotiate, right? And you feel more confident. I'm okay if I don't get this job because I didn't really needed it in the first place. Then you have the power of negotiation. So they said, here's an offer we want to make you.
Tatiana, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I think your kid needs your attention.
She wants a computer. Okay, here you go. Apologies. Yeah.
I have follow after the story. Yeah, I'll have follow-up question about being a mom.
I know.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
All right, so so they said, we want to make you an offer. I was like, okay, what's your offer? They're like, here's an offer. I was like, okay, let me think about it. I wasn't really looking for it, so let me think about it. They're like, we want to make you a strong offer. So how about bigger offer? I was like, okay, let me think about it. And then after a couple of days, I come back to them and I said, okay, sounds reasonable, but how about a bonus? And then, but you basically have more confidence to negotiate when you don't need a job. Yeah. And so they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, even with all of the Disney discounts and free park attendance and 50% off cruises. The money were just so much bigger, so I couldn't say no. So that's how I ended up going there, even though I wasn't planning on leaving Disney.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And again, how did you get this job, right? Through the networking.
Exactly.
Right?
But I'll tell you more. So that Women Impact Tech conference where I met my future VMware boss, the same conference I met my future Pokémon boss.
Interesting. Tell us about this too.
But I didn't connect with her after that conference. I connected with her on LinkedIn, but I didn't keep in touch with her because I got my VMware job. And usually I try to meet people for coffee later, but I didn't. But 3 years later, when I decided to leave VMware and I started looking for a job, she got a position open for a QA manager. And I was like, hey, I know you. I met you before. You told me about the Pokémon before. What's up? What's the job here? So this is why I keep saying that networking.
Go to conferences, go to meetups, meet people in person.
Yes. But also keep in touch and with the people that you worked with. Have your network and keep in touch with them and ask them, hey, what's going on? Like, how's your job? How's your team? And on the personal level, of course, as well, not only on need a job basis.
What? Tatiana, so you touched that already, right? Challenges being women in managerial position. What would be your advice right now for people, actually for women, who thinking about transitioning to a managerial position, or like how they like career growth, right? Like either you go to the technical route or maybe in other vertical like product management, right? Or managerial positions. What would be your advice to women who want to move forward in their career?
Look, it all depends on what you enjoy doing. It's not only about the career growth. You have to love your job to be successful. If you don't love what you're doing, there's no point of doing it because you're not going to be happy. It's going to stress you out and you're not going to grow if you don't love what you do. So you need to really understand, what do you love doing? So for me, it was management. For some people, it's being an architect, and you can go basically an IC route. and grow into the test architect role. If you're really into kind of like technical, doing coding, writing code stuff, like you could consider switching to dev if you think you would like that, right? So I was very passionate about quality. I just love it. It's something that I love doing. So I never wanted to go to be a developer. I wanted to be a leader, but I didn't want to go to a development route. So you have to understand, what do you like doing? Product management is a very different role, but you might enjoy doing it. Product management is all about connecting the engineering teams to business goals, understanding what is the business goals of the product, and then how does it impact engineering. And sometimes you just have to try. I'll tell you that I did consider switching to product management, and I'm actually finishing up a course right now that is called Product Management for AI. So it's a 12-week course, and they teach you both about the product management and AI space. And I learned, hey, here's the things you'll have to do as a product manager, and then decide, do I like it or I don't like it? So this is another way to try it out, to decide if you want to like it, if you like it or not. Or you can talk to people who are doing that job and just ask them, like, hey, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What do you like about it? What you don't like about it? Tell me more. So find out more about the position that you are considering, and then decide, do you want to do it or you don't want to do it?
Okay, so imagine that the person, she decided to move to managerial position, right? And like your career transition was, you have to prove it, right? What would be your advice? How would you approach if you would start it again over?
Yeah. Like I wouldn't actually do it any differently, right? And I know that that's the most common way that it happens, is you have to do it, to be a lead, right? Be a lead and then show that you can do it. So my advice would be, make sure that the position that you're in right now actually has space for you to practice these managerial skills. That's one thing. Second thing, make sure that your manager is supportive for you to grow you into the manager role and can help you, right? And then potentially talk about, hey, is it possible for me to become a manager in this team, in this organization? So get your manager support, get your sponsor support. Sponsor is another big topic. I don't want to start it because it's going to take a lot of time, but get your mentor support, manager support, sponsor support, and then learn the skills, show the skills, and then ask for it, and make sure that there is a place for you to grow in the team that you're in.
Tatiana, I have to ask you either way, who is sponsor?
Sponsor is someone who is not in your direct reporting chain, but they are in the room where the decisions are being made about your promotions or your reviews, right? So imagine, so you guys might know about calibration meetings, right? Once a year in the companies, calibration meetings happen where the managers from the same level get together with their manager and talk about all of their people and talk about where those people stand compared to each other and how they're doing, right? So in that room, when your manager says, hey, Ideal did so, and he's so awesome, he deserves promotion. And so there are other people in that room, they might say either, yeah, but I worked with Ideal and he didn't deliver on what he told me about. Or there might be another person who say, oh yeah, I worked with Ideal and he gave me this report and it was so helpful and I think he deserves a promotion. So having someone in that room who will stand up for you and support your promotion case is important. So building the connections with the people in that calibration room, and then making sure they understand what you're working on and what your accomplishments are, and then have a relationship with them so they would speak up for you when the time comes for the decision on your performance or your promotion.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
So it's a very This sponsor thing became known in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. There's a really good TED talk I can put in comments about it. But right now, it's a very common concept, especially for women in tech, is that they say that women get mentored well, but they don't get enough sponsors. And this is why they're not growing. Because if you think about like men and networking, they go through sponsors, but they don't call them sponsors. They just call them like buddies or, oh, I know that guy. But for women, because they don't know that guy, we call it sponsor.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So what is your future? I know that you're not working right now, right? Or you do?
Yes. No, I'm taking time off.
You're taking time off, right?
Yes.
So you're taking for your next step. What don't you mind to share what do you think of?
Yeah, it's a reason why I'm taking time off. I want to reflect on my career, 20 plus year career, and think about where I want to go next. So I'm doing some education. Actually, I got admitted into the Stanford LEAD program, which is for emerging leaders who want to make an impact and who wants to make a change. So I'm very excited about it. It's a year-long program. So I'm hoping that will help me expand my network, expand my kind of thinking about the industry, consider different industries, and open my eyes on something that maybe I haven't done before, or maybe the same thing, but in a different industry. So I'm open. I do want to grow. Like my passion is in making an impact and being a great leader and leading strong teams. So I just want to find where I want to do that next. And so by taking time off and expanding my network and doing some education, I'm hoping that would lead me to identify the right next step for me.
Amazing. Congrats with this program, Tatyana. I think it's achievement. And my next question, I know that you're raising twins, right? You mentioned. Tell us, especially to mom, who's thinking about going back to workforce, right? And being in a managerial position, having a lot of responsibility and raising two kids, how it is. How do you manage this? How did you manage this?
Yeah, I believe that moms are very powerful. They are very resilient. Like raising kids is no easy feat. And I also feel like both parents, dads and moms, they develop skills when they raise kids that people with no kids sometimes don't have or take longer time to develop. I have a post about like how the parenthood made me a better leader and a better employee, right? You learn to be flexible because kids don't always do what you want them to do. You learn to be adaptable. You learn to be resilient. You learn to juggle a lot of priorities, and time management just skyrockets.
Yeah.
I definitely think after I became a mom, my time management skills like went 100,000% more. You have to really prioritize and then do the most important things and do them in a timely manner. So I think being a mom actually helps you in your career. So I don't see any reason not to have a career as a mom. And you just figure it out. You learn to prioritize. You learn on how to get things done, what to drop, what not to drop. And it's okay. You can do it. I believe that you can do anything you put your mind to. So if you really want to, you will find a way to do it.
Awesome. And Tatyana, I know that you do initiatives, especially in the domain of women in tech. Can you elaborate in this, how people can find you, where to follow?
How do we find you on social media and keep up with this journey?
We just want to promote you, Tatyana.
So right now, like I started posting on LinkedIn literally like a couple months ago, right? So we are planning to expand to YouTube and put all of our videos on YouTube and have a channel there. So I will post that in my LinkedIn whenever we do that. It should be in the next couple of weeks. So those are the main places where you can find me. And I do want to offer, if anyone needs a career advice right now, I do have time and I love helping people. Please reach out, and I'm happy to spend 30 minutes with you and advise you on your next steps or how to get unstuck or what to do in the role that you're in right now. Please reach out. I'm happy to answer questions or meet for coffee or anything. I love working with people and help them grow.
Awesome. Awesome. And since we all trying to help, guys, join to our crushinginterview.com. We have a free game working on the helping with the resumes. Submit their resumes. We review them there for free. And your peer will be also looking into that. Take a look at that. Tatiana, that was very inspiring story of your career journey. And I wish you good luck with your initiatives. And I don't know, it really gives me so many insights, especially in the domain of like challenges, right? That women are going through working, especially in the tech industry itself, and the way how we can collaborate and help to each other. It's amazing. It's very eye-opening. Absolutely, absolutely. And folks, thank you for joining, and thank you for sticking through our technical difficulties today.
Hopefully people were able to find us, right?
Yeah.
I already got one connect invite, so seems like somebody's listening. So that's
Somebody's
good.
listening. Yeah, for sure. And also, you folks, you can find us on YouTube as well. I'll post our recording this in the YouTube. And Tatiana, thank you very much. Adil, again, we'll see each other. Usually we do this on Saturdays at 10 a.m. morning. I'll see you
I'll be on a plane next Saturday.
next Saturday. Yeah, but the following Saturday. Tatiana, you're always welcome, and please join us if you have time.
Let me know how I can help. I'm here.
Absolutely. All right, folks, thank you very much. I'll stop